Well, folks, I think it's safe to say that Brandon Beane was not impressed with Keon Coleman's rookie season or the entirety of the 2024 regular season campaign and even into the playoffs. As many of you guys know, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott had their exclusive interviews. Sean McDermott was on the podium for about an hour, and then Brandon Beane was on the podium for around the same time prior to Sean McDermott hopping on. And one of the biggest trending stories that has come out of all of this, outside, of course, of Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills organization just not agreeing with the 4th-and-1 call during the Buffalo Bills Kansas City Chiefs game, they ended up turning to Keon Coleman, the rookie wide receiver that Buffalo ultimately ended up drafting last draft year. And specific quote coming up, I can go ahead and I can pull it up for you guys so we can unpack quite a bit of what it meant, was Brandon Beane ultimately ended up saying this, and shout out to Catherine Fitzgerald for putting this for the visual for us today. I wish he had finished the season stronger, but we had honest, direct conversations with Keon. Let's give him a little grace here. His career is not defined by one season. You ultimately end up scrolling through some of the other interpretations of what Brandon Beane had to say. User Johnny over here said that Keon Coleman might be Brandon Beane's Cody Ford of wide receivers. More on top of that, both players can be good for both teams for years to come. I don't think today you and I can draw a statement on how either career will go. We're always going to make moves about what is best for the Buffalo Bills. And obviously that was when asked if we made the wrong decision in going with Keon Coleman rather than drafting Xavier Worthy in the first place. Now, I thought it was interesting because particularly what Brandon Beane was upset about had to do with his progression after his injury. As many of us remember, he was injured for a little bit. And according to Brandon Beane, and now even myself reflecting back, he just wasn't the same player, right? I mean, I have been sitting back watching some highlights, some film of Keon Coleman post-injury. And a lot of the times, what made him so good at the beginning of the season, utilizing his body control, going out there and being aggressive with each and every single one of his reps, it just didn't really appear to be the same. So whether or not that Keon Coleman himself, maybe he had a bit of the yips, maybe, for example, he didn't want to get hurt again, he certainly did not look like the exact same player that was out there at the beginning of the season. Best performance, hands down, had to be against the Seattle Seahawks game. But last week, as we remember from the AFC Championship game, we saw Trent McDuffie completely erase the guy. And none of us were anticipating Keon Coleman to be the speedster, somebody that's going to create crazy separation, but he was going to be the guy that was going to dominate in the physical side of things. And unfortunately, Keon Coleman had a step back. So now, of course, we hear from Brandon Beane, and he said that he wished that Keon would have developed a bit better and he would have continued to progress after the injury, but ultimately he did not. So is this Brandon Beane's way of telling us that he somewhat regrets going with Keon Coleman rather, of course, Xavier Worthy, or does he regret not picking Ladd McConkey instead? I personally am not reading too much into it. I am not giving up on Keon Coleman as of right now. I did think that he had some splashes at the beginning of the season, especially that Seattle game, several opportunities, several instances where he was going out, he was winning with his overall physicality. I'm not particularly sounding the alarm bells from this wide receiver by any stretch. But of course, Brandon Beane ultimately did end up saying that today during his press conference. Folks, I missed each and every single one of you. As many of you know, I was indeed in Mobile, Alabama, watching all of the prospects that are going into the NFL draft at the Senior Bowl. Super exciting, hence the merch right over here. I'm going to be putting out a bunch of content on that tomorrow and then leading up into next week, as well as getting into off-season mode. I missed each and every single one of you. I'm so glad that we are back. Let's go on ahead and get into the chat. Do me a favor, spam Go Bills in the chat for me. Let's bring this energy up. It's off-season time. It's time to start building a team and building our confidence level up as the damn Kansas City Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl, all right? It's never too late to spam Go Bills in the chat. I do want to give a giant shout out to today's sponsor. That just so happens to be William Matar, folks. Best car accident attorney in the state of New York. If you are hurt in a car, you better call William Matar. Phone number is on the screen. Have no mistakes about it. Shout out William Matar for sponsoring today's channel. Let's go ahead and see what the chat has to say. And I appreciate everyone coming in here, spamming Go Bills. What's up, Dan? Go Bills. Cameron, I am doing wonderful. Today's topic is Keon Coleman and the Buffalo Bills. Brandon Beane, if you guys are just joining the live version of this video, he basically said that he was disappointed in how Keon Coleman finished the season post-injury, but we will see. Mo is saying, Dan, was Savion Williams at the Senior Bowl, TCU wide receiver? Mo, I certainly did see Savion Williams at the Senior Bowl. He certainly was impressing. I wouldn't put him in like my top 5 as far as performances, but have no fear. We're going to be breaking down all of the Senior Bowl prospects that I saw and that I think would make a massive fit to the Buffalo Bills organization later this week. Hot take. I'm not mad at giving the Chiefs Worthy. I'm mad at taking Coleman over McConkey and drafting Dwayne Carter. Square comes in, and this is intriguing, right? Because I'm not particularly giving up on Keon Coleman, especially when you have to look at what this coaching staff, for the most part, really is able to do with a second year as far as their progressions are concerned, or as far as their development. I think Keon Coleman showed enough at the beginning of the season that there's still some things that are a bright spot, but certainly a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. I think with the lack of speed, I think that he needs to work a bit on his overall route running. But I'll tell you what, based off of what we heard from Brandon Beane today, if the Buffalo Bills ultimately end up going for a wide receiver in the 2nd or the 3rd round, I think that is going to tell us exactly what Brandon Beane feels about this entire situation. And again, during his press conference, Beane also mentioned that we don't necessarily need a wide receiver 1, something that we were talking about all last offseason, and ultimately it ended up being true. I mean, folks, we are the 30th overall draft pick this year. We made it to the AFC Championship. Obviously, what we were doing offensively was working, and we did all of that without a presence of a wide receiver 1 out on the field in general. I'm not saying that we're not going to make a move in the draft class. I'm not saying that we aren't going to maybe hit free agency again for maybe a bit more of a friendly contract. Maybe somehow we can get Amari Cooper back on in. But basically what Brandon Beane is saying. Broncos fan here, our coaching staff / assistant GM are diminishing, and I'm not happy about it. I was ticked off and depressed. I'll tell you what, man, I would not be depressed when it comes to the Denver Broncos. They exceeded expectations, and I think you guys are in the right move. Dan, was Savion Williams at the Senior Bowl, wide receiver from TCU? He was there, and I'm excited to look through quite a bit of this. Sorry you have to go to the bowl with Kansas City repping the AFC. Chin up, soldier. It is tough, Laura. It's going to be a very difficult time for me, but I'm just kidding. I'm going to have a wonderful time at the Super Bowl, whether or not that it's the Chiefs, the Bills, whatever. It is an awesome experience, and I'm blessed to have it. So we need to beef up that D-line, and backfield needs talent badly. Don't worry, there's plenty of defensive line help in this upcoming draft class. I promise you that. Damn. What do you think about the Chiefs versus the Eagles Super Bowl? Maddox is coming in. I have betted against the Chiefs far too long. I think the Eagles defense will give the Chiefs issues. Particularly what they do well is what this offense struggles with historically in 2024, but it's hard for me not to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. How about them Eagles? How about them Eagles, man? How about them Eagles? We need a 2-dimensional DB and need to re-sign. What the hell? Richie, what up? Yeah, we have Richie in the house right now. He's been staying at the crib. Richie, what's up?
Yo, I'm in Don Mafia's territory right here. How's the chat? Hit that like button for my boy Dan Mitchell. We're live across all platforms. I mean, how you feeling? You're back in the studio or after a whole Senior Bowl week?
Oh, yeah, bro. We're back in the studio, and then I guess Brandon Beane was not impressed with Keon Coleman's rookie season is what we're hearing.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Was he impressed with Xavier Worthy's?
Probably.
Maybe I should walk out of
Yeah. Get out of here, Richie. Get out of here, Richie.
It's all right. Sensitive information.
Sensitive information to begin with. That is Richie Melora, my business partner over at Roundtable Sports. Dan, next time, don't get too giddy, my man. New year, year of the Bills. I will always get giddy, my friend. Don't worry about that. I am a man with balls of steel. I'll get as giddy as I want, my friend. I love you, though, Justin. Thank you so much for coming in. Was Xavier Watts at the Senior Bowl? He was not. Him and then also the top-ranked safety were not in attendance. But there were a couple of safeties in third, fourth round that were pretty interesting. Dan, what do you think about the people saying McDermott should get fired? I think that what they're doing is they're just setting themselves up for disappointment because it's not going to happen, right? Like there are a certain sect of Bills fans that want Sean McDermott to get the can, but this ownership is just not going to do it, at least not this year. And surprisingly enough, I'm actually one of the ones who's not mad at Sean McDermott for this game whatsoever. He had a perfect defensive game plan, but it was the personnel that just did not execute, right? It was the offense, who was the second highest scoring offense in the NFL, that did not execute when we needed them to execute. I'm just not putting this. I'm just not putting this on Sean McDermott. Dan, do you think Bills would have beat the Bengals in the first round? I do. We need a two-dimensional DB and need to re-sign Amari so he can be a mentor to Keon. I'll be completely honest with you, man. I don't really think that whole mentor narrative of having a player on the squad being like, oh, he's going to mentor him. I really don't think that that plays much of a factor in anything. I think that it's more of a stylistic, it's more of a, oh, we're hoping that he can rub off of this like young player. Sometimes there's just like different personnel and there's different players that have different strengths and weaknesses. And sure, like you can motivate them from like one stand, but really at the same time, I just don't really like that take. I don't think it's realistic. I think it just means something like in the movies. And so to be completely honest with you, I'm not giving up on Keon Coleman. I still think he will be fine, but I do think that we need one more wide receiver in the draft. I would like to welcome back Amari Cooper onto this squad. From what I've been seeing about Amari Cooper, his market value based off of Spot Track is at about $14.8 million per year, and they're calling for a 2-year contract. So we're going to have to take a look at this a bit deeper. I can't wait to get into it. Instead, Brando drafted Cody Ford. He is the Cody Ford guy. Dan, what do you shoot over 18 holes of golf? And do you ever play with Trump? Oh, all the time, bro. You have no idea. I'm decent, like at golf. Like I shoot like high 80s. I'd say like high 80s, like on like I'd say pretty consistently. Bad day, like mid 90s. Square is saying, whoa, Richie. That's what I'm saying. Bills Tilapia. Let's talk about this. Big Jamie Games is coming on in and saying we should re-sign Cooper to a 1-year or 2-year deal 100%. Well, like I said, we have to see what's going to happen because this is his first time ever in free agency, folks. His first time ever in free agency. He's only been traded. So I'm sure that he's going to be going out and looking for the team that gives him the largest bag that he could potentially find. Is that going to be Brandon Beane? I'm not entirely convinced. Let's see. Beane drafted Cody Ford, could have drafted AJ Brown and or DK Metcalf. We have Alexander the Great. Like, guys, look, there's nothing wrong with being mad at the front office and coaching staff because every single fan base does this, right? Like, we have Pittsburgh Steelers fans out here that want Mike Tomlin fired. We have Eagles fans in here that I'm sure if Kansas City beats them in the Super Bowl again, that they're going to be wanting Sirianni to be fired. Every single fan base wants a complete facelift each and every single season. And I'm not telling you that I agree with everything that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane do, but the one thing I want everyone to walk away with while watching this stream is this. It's not going to happen. Like, this ownership is not going to let go of either of these guys, particularly with how far that they have come. What's up? What's up?
I don't think you're coming through here.
Oh, I'm not? That's why.
It's not plugged in.
It's not even plugged in. Damn.
Sorry, guys. I didn't hear the crispy audio, so I had to.
It's not the crispy audio. Let's go ahead and check. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Folks, sincerest apologies for the amateur audio you were hearing a bit earlier if you were just
14
joining.
Minutes of amateur audio.
14 minutes of amateur audio. I just hooked up back from Mobile, Alabama, brother. We're going to have to see. I only want McDermott gone for one person, and that is Brandon Beane. Our defense is fine, but I feel like BB can upgrade our defense. Why not go get a guy who is a goated defensive mind? Let me get that again. I only want McDermott gone for one person that's built. Well, he just signed a 3-year contract with a college team, so I'm not particularly seeing
what that is. Pay Cook. Let's go that. You want to play a game of golf? Yeah, man, I'm down. Let me know when you're in. Maybe you could help me fix my slice, Glenn, because my slice is still pretty atrocious. But luckily I found ways to help it out at the end of the day. I want Tez Johnson. What do you think? Dude, if you were to see what I saw from Tez Johnson at the Senior Bowl, you would have been absolutely mind blown. What you're seeing on TV compared to what we saw in person, it doesn't give it justice. It doesn't give it justice of what he was doing. When I tell you that he won literally every single rep that we saw, Thing is, he's predominantly a slot receiver, rarely ever lines up outside. And the guy that we have in the slot is Khalil Shakir, who I thought has had a wonderful season already. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the guy that we would end up going after. One wide receiver I really like out of the Senior Bowl, and I'm really going to dive into this shit. Iowa State wide receiver Jaden Higgins, stud, 6'4", incredible route runner, runs people over. He was probably my draft crush as far as the wide receiver position had to go. What happened to the round table? You ran. I did not run. We have TD on vacation in Disney, and Richie and I were in Mobile covering this whole thing. So we did not do an episode because we would have been absolutely light, and we want everyone to have their best shot at me when we do have an opportunity of doing it. We're hoping that we can do it during the Super Bowl next week, but afterwards we will be back at regularly scheduled programming. It's just been wild stuff. I'm not running, baby. You know I don't run. We need to rebuild our entire defense. I wouldn't even necessarily say that, right? Like, what I think is interesting is I think that we need some safety help. I'm fine with the development I saw from Cole Bishop later in the season once he started getting his reps. I think interior defensive line is going to be massive because Daquan Jones is probably not going to be brought back. But I also have a guy out of Ole Miss that I love, dude. I would love if the first round pick for the Buffalo Bills, pick number 30, is Walter Nolan, defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. Guy is a run eater, solid one tech that I think would fit in perfectly. I think that he would open up Ed Oliver to a great season next year. So, in my opinion, you go on ahead, draft an interior defensive lineman, draft a free safety, so someone that's solid in coverage. My favorite's Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. Absolute dog. And we're going to be looking at these guys later. And then as far as CB2 is concerned, I want to hit free agency. Now, I think that there are some realistic corners that we can go after. I would love Charvarius Ward, but he's going to be way too expensive. But I do think that DJ Reed would make sense, and I do think that DJ Reed actually would be a solid pickup for the Buffalo Bills, and I think that he would be able to fit our budget. And then I would also like Carlton Davis, cornerback from Detroit as well. I would be fine with any of those guys. Whether or not that Rasul Douglas comes back, I'm not sure if that's going to be on the priority, but we will see. We have Keon was mid. He started off the season great, but then after the injury, he certainly just disappeared. Bills need a big defensive tackle and a new safety. Absolutely, man. Those are the two prospects that I was looking at. Crazy. Stop swinging so hard. Slow your swing down. I feel like that's exactly what people tell me. All right, smart. I'm going to try that. And then I also heard putting chapstick right on the club as well, so I can see like what I can do. Is Dan in Cancun? Yes, Bob and I are in Cancun right now, folks. I wish I could be with Jimbo in the Pro Bowl games tonight. Wouldn't we all? Dan definitely in Cancun. I am in Cancun, and so are you, Brandon and Brand. You are also in Cancun with me, my friend, in the room right next to me. So you think the Eagles-Chiefs this year will be better than the Chiefs-Eagles last year? And go Birds, shout me out. Shout out my boy J-Dog in the chat. What's up, J-Dog? Hope all is well. Yes, I do think that it's going to be a better matchup than the last time because your defense, so I think really matches up well against Kansas City this time. So I feel like you'll be okay. Dan is in his basement. Florida doesn't have basements, sir. No one in Edmonton ever thought in 1 million years Wayne Gretzky would have left for LA, and it happened soon as he married an actress. F around and find out. Get this guy some talent, please. Well, I think I know where you're going with that with Josh Allen. I saw some crazy stuff. Like some like meme account said something about Josh Allen go to Dallas or like San Francisco or something. He's probably going to be made like a top 3 highest paid QB in the NFL this offseason. Don't be surprised when that happens. I really think it's going to. His guarantees run out in 2026. So I think that that's ultimately what's going to happen with our QB1. I don't think McDermott should be fired. I do think him and Brandon will focus on defense more, searching for game changer type of players such as Chris Jones type that, if that is even possible. So a lot of really good guys in the draft. And I think the number one question for the Buffalo Bills this year is, how do we want to fill the holes that we have on defense? Do we want to spend certain things on free agency, or do we want to spend certain things within the draft and building from within? If I was so here's where I'm at. I would preferably like to save free agency for the cornerback position. So a CB2, I would love to use free agency for a corner. And then drafting, I would like to address free safety and interior defensive tackle. So within the draft, I think that that makes all the sense in the world. And then wide receiver, I'm fine with like throwing a couple of prayers up and rolling the dice in free agency, but I do think that we should spend a second, third round pick on a wide receiver, somebody that could be on the boundary opposite of Keon Coleman, or maybe even go on ahead and like roll the dice and actually get a solid wide receiver 1 after the fact. But it's going to be a long off season of talking about it, guys, and I really can't wait to dive into it. Dino is coming in. Allen should request a trade to NFC if he ever wants to play in a Super Bowl. Allen has Mahomes nightmares. It's a tough world we live in. It's a tough world we live in out here, folks. Tez could save us money on Shakir. A lot of decisions will have to be made with these upcoming extensions. I want the Texas A&M defensive lineman. I had an interview with him. Who saw that interview? Who saw that interview, bro? Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll show you the interview that we did with him. It was actually really cool. Let me see. I know exactly who you're talking about, but I do hate to break it to you, but this gentleman that I'm about to put on the screen, he's likely going top 20. I know you like Walter, but Ohio State Williams is a beast, and you won't be disappointed when watching his film. I'm going to have to take a look at him. I did not see him at the Senior Bowl. I wonder if he was at the Shrine Bowl or if he just decided not to get out there in the first place. But very proud moment. I have a couple of interviews that we ultimately ended up doing. Let me go ahead and put this up real fast. One interview, and then tomorrow we are going to be diving into the prospects I saw from the Senior Bowl, bro. It's going to be absolutely insane. Not that one. Where's the good? Here it is. All right. We're talking about this man right here, bro. If you want a game-changing edge rusher, this guy right here was all over the field. He was making left tackles his bitch all game on day 2. Broke the line, caused the forced fumble. His energy is there. He's 6'6". Dude, 6'6", like 280 lean. Biggest guy I've ever seen in my entire life. 6'6" defensive end. Here you go. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am with edge rusher from Texas A&M, Shamar Stewart. Crazy practice, Shamar. A lot of people are projecting you to go in the first round. Now, if that does happen, what is going to make you stand out from all the other edge rushers that have been out here today and throughout college football?
Because I'm gonna keep developing. I'm gonna try and go get that defensive rookie of the year. I'm trying to make an immediate impact to wherever team I got chosen to go to.
Got it. And last question, I've been asking everybody this. Who is the number 1 quarterback that you would like to sack in your rookie season?
Lamar.
I'm
a Florida guy, so I got to go get him.
And so it'll be a hell of a test. And so we appreciate you, Shamar. See you. Absolute dog. You followed me on Instagram. We're now best friends, ladies and gentlemen. I want defensive tackle Walker, Kentucky, 6'7", 340, and DT Howard Cross from Notre Dame, who reminds me of Kyle Williams. It also like QB Will Howard and Riley Leonard. I'll be honest with you, man. I really wasn't impressed with Riley Leonard, like at Senior Bowl. I'm not going to like say that he won't be good in the NFL, but he did like really not have like a good showing. So to be completely honest with you, here's the damn take that I feel like a lot of people are probably going to like absolutely mind blown. Jackson Dart from what I saw in practice, day 2 and day 3, he's a first-round QB. I honestly think that Jackson Dart is a first-round QB, and I think he's the second quarterback taken this year over Shedeur Sanders. So I think it's going to be Cam Ward, then Jackson Dart, and then Shedeur based off of how Dart looked. Like, he's mobile. He's about the size of Josh Allen, I would say, maybe a little shorter. He's got a cannon. His accuracy is there. I think Dart can get it done. And I think someone's going to absolutely shock some people. It's players in the NFL that still haven't sacked Lamar. He basically saying Lamar is his favorite. Shakir, that bandwagon can't answer the question. Maybe take a listen to it. Any quarterback with 4-letter names are absolute trash. I don't know about that. Dan, so you see Alkman agree with you. Refs need to improve. You see Alkman agree with you. Who's Alkman? See, Alkman agree with you. Refs need to improve. Yeah, dude, 110%. Dan, who's a harder matchup for the Bills, Chiefs and or the Bengals? I'd say the Chiefs. Preach at Pat. 0-8, and for people named Ian who aren't annoying clowns. Sal is saying Allen haters are a hair smarter than a rock. Dart is kind of a dog. He is, dude. He is, man. I guarantee you that this New York Giants team or whatever team is second in looking for a QB, I think they're going to go with Jackson Dart right over Shedeur Sanders. I just have a feeling. Chiefs are a joke of a fraud franchise. Square is saying Ian 17 named 3 QBs before Alex Smith. Maddox, Dan, who are your top 5 quarterbacks right now? Right now, like favorites or like who are the best in the NFL? So number 1 is Mahomes, obviously. I hate it. I hate him, but he's there. Number 2, I have Josh Allen. 3, I have Lamar Jackson. 4, I have Joe Burrow. 5, give me. I feel like I'm missing somebody obvious. So 1's Mahomes. We have 2 Allen, 3 Lamar, 4 Joe Burrow. 5, who am I missing? That's obvious. Yo, honestly. Yeah. I'm going to have to put Jaden Daniels at 5, like based off of what I've seen so far. But that's me. I have a question. And do you feel like if you made the Super Bowl right now, would you feel that you'd be able to beat the Eagles the way that you played? I mean, you didn't play bad. I'm just asking. So I feel like we would have made it competitive for sure. And hopefully we didn't have like any like terrible calls. And I'm not saying that that game was rigged for the Buffalo Bills, but I am saying that those calls were absolutely pitiful. So the 4th and 1 on Josh Allen was absolutely obviously a first down. I also think that that catch from Xavier Worthy was not a catch, although that it was a defensive holding and they would have still gotten the first down, and nothing is saying that they wouldn't have converted anyway. But so I think that it would have definitely been competitive. Jordan Travis. Yes, because with the Eagles had the easiest path to the Super Bowl this year that I have ever seen in my entire life. My favorite way to go into the Super Bowl, listening to the Bills off-season talk. Hey, man, here we are, baby. This is going to be the most watched Super Bowl ever. I've heard the opposite, actually. I'm not all that knowledgeable about the NFL, but I am a fan of the sport. I'm very optimistic about the Bills in 2025 season. I honestly believe that they will win their division again. I mean, that's a given. Like, I definitely see the Buffalo Bills walking away with the division next year, but that's really not what we've been trying to accomplish for the past couple. I wish Will Howard didn't opt out of the Senior Bowl. I mean, yeah, dude, honestly, man, when it came into like QBs, like my rankings for them had to be Dart at number 1. And then surprisingly enough, Dylan Gabriel had 2 very good days at practice. Today was not so impressive if you were to ask me, but first 2 days were pretty wild, but decently. All right, folks, I am going to let you go. I'm going to go hang out with the boys. As you know, we have Richie, Colby, and Troy at the house, our Lions representative of the Roundtable Sports, AFC East Roundtable Sports in general. So I'm going to go and hang out with them for a tad. Do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't had an opportunity of doing so far. I will be back on my regular streaming schedule tomorrow, 11 a.m. EST, 5:15 p.m. EST as well. And then next week, I'll be at the Super Bowl. So I'm going to try and stream here and there. But do me a favor, subscribe, get in on it. And I look forward to catching up with you guys tomorrow morning. Deuces.